Good morning. Predicted Trades family. Hope everybody's doing well. It is Thursday, October 20th. For a quick review, yesterday in the market, we opened near the bottom of some 1 hour, 2 hour squeezes at this key 3708. I'm looking at ES, that's the S&P futures. It's what I mainly track to follow the S&P. Obviously there's SPY, there's SPX, and we track those as well. But ES is kind of my main gauge. We open around this 3708 and a half. Little dip down near 3700, hit these squeeze bottoms. That's where we took some long positions up to our first target, this 3741. Our next target was at 3773, but we rejected 3741. That's where we locked up our long, waited for a little confirmation, and then hopped into a short. Playing the 370 put on SPY, back down. Overall, if you tuned into prep yesterday, I talked about how this blue line, which is the daily 8, was crossing over this orange line, which is the daily 15. And the overall thesis was at open, since we were opening near the bottom of a squeeze, we were leaning long after a quick test of those squeezes. So we played long up to this 3741, but the overall thesis yesterday is if we couldn't get through 3741 and we give out 3708, likely coming down to test this daily 15, daily 8 in the bottom of this squeeze. That's exactly what we got. So we held that short down to 3680. And at that point, we locked everything up. That 370 put on SPY went $1.20 to about 450. And then to kind of finish out the day, we did play a little bit of longs, a little bit of shorts, as the market was just kind of slowly grinding around 3700, 3790. As you can see, overnight, the market did a great job holding above the low from yesterday. And basically, triple tapping this 3680. And now we're coming right back up. Looks like we're pushing into the top of it's at a 1 hour squeeze at open. So much like yesterday when we opened at the bottom of some squeezes, today we are opening at the top of some squeezes. Could we see a little rejection here at the daily 21, this white line, which is around 3730. We're arriving there right now, pre-market. So a couple of scenarios. We could reject here or this 3741, make a quick bounce up there, and then come back. Again, the thesis will be kind of like yesterday. If we do have a pullback off of the squeeze top, 3708 is sitting kind of right in the middle. The daily 8 has stepped up from that 3685-ish to 3700. So if we have a little rejection of the squeeze top and a pullback, looking for one of these key levels to give us a bounce to play long through the top of this squeeze to try to get to that 3741 and again that 3773. But as you can see, that has kind of been the range all week. Right? We had our gap up Monday. We opened near our key 3668. We get our gap up to 3773, back to 3708. So these key levels are the range for the week. So we're going to use these levels to position off of, whether it's back down to retest or long to get up for another retest of that 3773. Can we push through these clouds early and keep going? Yes, but statistically, when we run into a squeeze top near open, we have a pullback. When we run into a squeeze bottom near open, we have a bounce. So let's see if we have a little pullback and an opportunity to go long through this daily 21 and up to these key levels. I will note we had a little trend line from last week into this week that we have started to slip under, and go sideways. It is a little bit of a sharp trend line coming off of that big drop after CPI. So just because we gave it out doesn't mean we are definitely going down. We could continue to find our support here and buyers send us higher. Another thing to note, we have a daily squeeze that is tightening in around us. The top of that daily squeeze is up at 3,800, so if we could push through that 3,773, the target is to get up to 3,800, 3,807, and this squeeze top up near our first Keltner to the upside, which is just one standard deviation away from the mean, the Keltner lines. So that's kind of the thesis. If we look around, come on. Should we start to see heavier selling today and kind of take out this daily 8, daily 15, and yesterday's low, we are likely going to this 3668 in the bottom of a, that's the bottom of the hourly squeeze that we are currently at the top of. So if we do make it from squeeze top all the way to bottom, it's that 3668 that we're looking to hold us up. Should that give out and we start to fall out of the squeeze cloud and fire to the downside, then we have a key zone below 3639, 3621, with the first Keltner to the downside falling right in the middle of that at 3630. So this is the target zone if we break down below 3668. If we can break up above 3741, 3773, 3800, 3807. But with tight squeezes today and with Snap reporting earnings after the bell, we could just stay contained in these squeeze clouds. Just for any of the newer folks that are tuning in, it can look like this, where we go from squeeze top to squeeze bottom, squeeze bottom to squeeze top, back to squeeze bottom, just kind of ping-ponging around those until we finally break out. And many times, as you can see with this 4-hour, the breakout isn't pretty. We push into the top, we gap up, we reject, big drop. We finally get through it overnight. A lot of times when we get into these higher time frame, thicker squeezes, they don't really get pushed through during a cash session. We get a gap up overnight and they open up and fire. So just some things to keep in mind for today. We could be trapped in this range, waiting on Snap earnings. Let's move on to NQ. One thing I forgot, though, real quick, is let's just check our economic calendar. We don't have a lot coming out today. We have every Thursday we have our jobless claims. Jobless claims, manufacturing index out of Philadelphia, some existing home sales, some data coming around 10 a.m. It's 8:30 now, so our jobless claims are already dropping. Wouldn't be surprised, since we're at squeeze tops, to see us pull back before open off of that jobs data. We also have a Fed speaker around 1:45 this afternoon. And then tomorrow, the only thing on the docket really is around noon. We have some inflation data coming out. So, on NQ, very similar. We open near squeeze bottoms and at the daily 8, daily 15. We try to fight up to the daily 21, this white line, but we got stuffed by this pre-market high and reverse back down to our key level at 11,068.5-ish. And I even talked about yesterday, the thesis is if we do slip below and into these squeeze clouds, that we could very easily hit 11,050, 11,000, making a 50-point range of support. This low of day was 11,050. In fact, what's it say? 11,049, so 1 point off. Basically meaning it just dipped its toe into that zone of support and took back off again. Overnight, NQ did slip a little bit lower, but here we are, right back at our key level. around 11,200. So let's see if we start to reject the squeeze top and come back. Would love to see this 11,068 hold if we do get down there. If we start to lose that, we could be coming back to the bottom of the squeeze, this key psych level 11,000. And I do have a zone below that if we see heavier selling. But if we can hold at any of these and start to push through this 11,200, the goal is to get up past yesterday's highs at about, 275 and get up to the daily 21 here at 11,326. If we can push past that, we're talking about this week's highs around 11,400 and getting back to that psych level 11,500. That's if we have a strong day on the market. On to the ready. So the Russell made it down to this big important zone. I've covered this in past preps, but basically this shaded area down here and some of these key levels represent highs from before COVID, highs from after the COVID recovery on the market. Basically, this zone represents the ready Russell resetting the board from the last couple of years' rally, and a good spot where we could see the Russell start to take off to the upside again. So she's made a good climb back above daily moving averages. Yesterday we get up above the 21. We're going to pull back and retest. And yesterday they did a good job of holding it up at these moving averages. We're about to open right at them again. And here we're starting to get that slip a little bit on economic data. There we go. I was just saying, I bet that jobless claims bring us back out of these squeeze clouds a little before open. So not surprised to see that. Ready. Today, basically just looking for it to try to find its feet at these daily moving averages and push back up. We could very easily, we made it above moving averages, we're pulling back to find support in buyers. Should we start to give these out, we could start a new down leg again, right? There's not a lot of good news going on right now for the market to be rallying. But overall, we almost made it to the top of our daily squeeze on the Russell, pulling back to these moving averages. For the long play, looking to hold these, push back through the squeeze top, through yesterday's high, to get back to this week's high at the top of this daily squeeze. But if we keep projecting, take out overnight lows and yesterday's lows, and push below 1710, then we can talk about, we'll probably be slipping back to 1700 and 1685. YM. So YM ran into the top of the daily squeeze and on Tuesday, and we've been dealing with a little pullback here. The daily yesterday on our pullbacks, we didn't even get down to test any of the daily moving averages, and now they've slowly caught up to the bottom of the squeeze. So you probably already know, I'm going to say if we slip back down to test the bottom of the squeeze around 30,200, I'm looking for these moving averages to hold us up. A break below 30,180, maybe even call it 30,150. A break below that and a rejection of these moving averages mean we're going back to test 30,000. But, should we get down here, looking for these moving averages to hold, the squeeze bottom to hold, and if it can provide support for us to get back up to yesterday's highs, which we almost tapped pre-market, around 30,700. This week's highs up around that 870, 850 up at the top of the squeeze. And maybe even up to this psych level of 31,000, where the top of a 4-hour squeeze is starting to form. Overall, looking good, and if we do have a little dip at open, might just hold this trend line from yesterday's lows to overnight lows. You can come in and grab that wick from yesterday, connect it to some of these overnights. You get a little trend line of support from the lows. So let's see if YM can stay in this channel and try to push through these squeeze tops to move up to the next. Or if we start to give out this channel and come back to daily moving averages, should those give out, we know where we're going. Apple. Apple was very cooperative yesterday. Open at the bottom of squeezes, so we look long. Apple very quickly shot up through its moving averages and right back up almost to our 145. I got a little zone here around 144 and a half. 145, that was the target. It got there, came back to moving averages, the daily 15 and daily 8, and then settled above. You can see even our overnight or pre-market low right back at those moving averages, so we've got our buyers of support right around there. As we are slipping back with the market on that economic data, basically looking for those same moving averages to hold. They're going to be in the same spot today, around this 142, 142 and a half. So those are the two zones that we are trapped between. When we get down near here, I'll be looking to go long. Obviously, we could give these out and start to slip into the squeeze cloud. Basically, as long as we're above 141, you can see this little low here got down to about 140 and a half. As long as we're above 141, though, I'm continuing to look long. Once we start to give that out, then I'll be looking short back down to our zone below at 138, 138.8. But we could very easily continue to hold these moving averages around that 142, work our way back up to this zone, 144 and a half, 145, with the goal of getting back to 147 and a half at the top of all these squeezes. Almost got there on Tuesday. But if you look, we're just kind of coming into wedges on everything. We had to get through Netflix earnings on Tuesday, Tesla earnings on Wednesday, and I believe today after the bell we have Snap. If you're ever curious and you're new to our server, if you just come in to the main area, we've got a stock news channel where we follow a couple of names on Twitter that are constantly dropping news, but we also have an earnings channel where we take a look, or we have another Twitter bot that is dumping from earning whispers. And here's the schedule for this week. Yes, we have Snap after the close today. Not that they hold a lot of weight, but they're kind of the first in the ad revenue space to report. And the market, for whatever reason, really reacts to Snap's earnings reports. If you go look at each earning report for Snap this year, each quarter, when they report, we see a big dump. Because your Facebooks, your Googles, your everything that runs ads reacts to how Snap reaction goes. As silly as that sounds. That's why I titled this prep, "Is Snap going to break the market again?" So we could chop around today in these zones waiting for that. But let's see if Apple can be strong and get back up to this zone and try to push higher. AMD. Trap between some key levels. This 58.75, 56, big key level of support. We're seeing a little gap up. Obviously coming back with the market. Actually, we might be opening basically flat. For AMD, basically looking for it to still hold this 46, 46 and a half at the bottom of these squeezes and try to work its way back up to this 58.73. If it can get beyond that, looking for it to get up to 60 where the top of a 4-hour squeeze sits. I'm not really going to talk about breakdown below 56. 56 is such a big key level. if you look, we have been settling at it, only slipped it a little bit, and we keep holding, keep holding, keep holding. So 56 a big key level. You have to go back to the COVID drop in recovery. It stayed under 56 for a long time, and then finally broke through and made the rally to 100. So what was once a wall of resistance needs to be a big wall of support now. Amazon has had a strong week, made it up to the mean, and slipped back yesterday to test the daily 8 and daily 15. So I got a key level around the 113.5. You can see we fell to it yesterday and found support. So if we keep slipping here at open, looking for that 113, 113.5 zone to give us support and a bounce. If she can get going to the upside, we're looking to get back to 116.5, the daily 21, and yesterday's high. And then beyond that up to 118, 119 at the top of the squeeze, 2-hour squeeze, right back at this week's highs. If she starts to give out that 113 and the squeeze bottom, come on, there we go. She'll also be giving out these daily moving averages. If she starts to give out 113, it could spell firing the squeeze to the downside below 112, which would probably send us back to this 110, 108, 106 at the bottom of this daily squeeze. BA, continuing this trend line, upward trajectory. BA could be an interesting gauge today if it can hold around this 138.5 and make a move in the morning, a quick move up to 141 and trying to push higher. We could see a nice pop across the board on the market. Not saying the market just follows BA, just saying BA does carry some weight, and if it continues this upward trajectory, it'll definitely help the market. If it starts to lose that 138.5, like it'll come back to 137 and 136 at the bottom of these squeezes where the daily 21, that white line, and the daily 8 sit. Daily 8 around that 135. So we start to give out 138, likely coming back to 136, 135 for some tests. Should that give out, then it's down to 132, 133 where this 4-hour squeeze sits. Cat. Also on that upward trajectory. And looking pretty strong this morning. It's holding up above the daily 50. It's one of the few names that has made it back to the daily 50 and trying to hold. Let's see how we deal with this 185.5. If we reject there, I'm expecting a pull back to this 182, the daily 50 for a test. If we can get through that 185.5, 186, then it's 188 and 189.5 are the targets to the upside. There is a big key level at 193.8 if we actually get going, but if you look, she's kind of just been contained within this big 4-hour squeeze for days. So, if we start to give out that daily 50 around 183, we can expect to come back to 180 where the daily 8 sits, maybe even down to 178 where the daily 21 sits. So yeah. Coin. Not looking the strongest. Did make it up to its daily 50 once and twice. And now slipping back to this key level at 62. This did allow us to start this interesting pop up back to those means. So let's see if 62 provides more support since we are near it today. If we start to lose that, likely coming back to this 58.5 at the bottom of this daily squeeze. If we can hold there, looking for it to get back up to these moving averages around 66 and 68. Google. Like everything on the market, came back to that daily 8 and 15, looking for that to hold again around this 98.78. As long as that level can continue to hold at these squeeze bottoms, looking long back to 101, 103 at the top of some squeezes, right? If we start to give out this 98.75, 98 level at these squeeze bottoms, then we can expect a rollback to 97 and this 95, 96 zone. GS. Holding above the daily mean, as long as we can continue to hold above that, I'll call it 307, 308 at the bottom of the squeeze where the daily 21 and daily 8 sit. As long as we can hold that on any retests. Looking forward to get back to 315, 318, and maybe even all the way up to this week's highs and the daily 50 back at 324. We also have the daily 200 at 327.5 for some upside targets if we can break out of this wedge and rally for more. If we start to lose that 307, 308, we can expect we're coming back to test this daily 15 at 303.5. Should that give out, psych level 300 and 297. JPM made a big old push back above the daily 50 and made it to the second Keltner. We do have a daily squeeze, 2-day squeeze that's starting to form. Basically, if we have a pullback, looking for that daily 50 to hold around 114. If that fails, we're likely coming back to the daily mean around 111. But if we can hold 114 or even that 115 on a pullback, looking for this to try to continue up to 120, 122 at the top of this 2-day squeeze. Meta. Basically pinned between the daily 21 and daily 8. When we're pinned at liquidity levels, sometimes the best thing is to wait for it to break out, do a retest, and then get in. But there's always an opportunity in these squeezes. Hey, morning, Johnny Whitaker. Thank you for tuning in. Feel free to ask anything in the YouTube chat. I do keep it up to try and keep an eye in case anybody has any questions. On Meta, let's see if we can hold 132 like we've been doing for days. As long as we can hold there, looking to get back through 134 up to 136, 137, where we've been topping out this week, and the daily 21 sits. Basically, going long at the daily 8, back to the 21, short from the 21 back to the daily 8 has been working for a few days. Microsoft. Microsoft made it back to this 241, 240, and has been slipping back to the daily 8 and 15 for retests. Big key level here at this 232.86. So as long as we're above that, and it's right at the bottom of our squeezes, as long as we hold that, I'm looking long from that 232.86 up to this 241, with the next stop trying to get to this 245 and then 250 at the top of a daily squeeze. Looks like we do have the daily 50 just a hair past that at 254, but clearly that's 20 points up, so don't need to worry about it right now. If we start to lose this 232, we can expect to come back and test this 230, and should 230 give out, then we could come back to retest this 225, where we tried to settle before that CPI gap down and back up. Netflix. Big gap up on earnings. Wedging now, kind of in this bull flag from earnings. Almost made it to the daily 200, which sits at 280. It could easily just continue to oscillate between this 265 to 80 while the market figures itself out. So definitely kind of, I'm personally letting this one wait and figure out where it wants to go. You know, if market starts to dump out of this range that we have fought up to, Netflix likely coming back to this 252. As you can see, it pushed up through some big daily squeezes. We have to stay up here for a few days for those squeezes to fire. NVIDIA. I had a decent morning yesterday and didn't even set new lows, so trying to hold up. We did see IBM and LRCX report after the bell yesterday, and both had favorable reactions. So we could see some rotation into chips today. Something to keep in mind. If we can hold this daily 8 around 119, looking for it to get up to 122, ultimately that 125, and that 124.5, where that daily 21 sits. So target the upside, that 24, 25. If we start to give out 118, likely coming back to 116 for a test. QQQ. So did set some new lows overnight, just like NQ. Now we are back above that daily 8, daily 15. So let's see if on a dip we can hold yesterday's lows around this 268.20, or the overnight lows around this 267.20. So we've got like a little bit of a dollar spread there of support from yesterday's low, overnight lows. As long as we can hold that and this squeeze bottom. Looking for us to try to fight back up. I mean, we're going to be opening near 270, right? So as long as we don't slip any further. Looking for us to first get up through pre-market highs around 272, fight back to yesterday's highs around 274, where the daily 21 is likely going to be stepping down pretty close to. If we can get through that 274, looking to carry up to maybe even this 278 at the top of this 4-hour squeeze. Next big key level, 280. Let's see, SPX. On the gap down, it got back up to fill the gap. That was another reason that we were locking up our longs. As we looked across the board, pretty much everything filled the gap down. And then we went short back down to the moving averages. That's why we track those things on every ticker. And this tool that I have built and provide in the tool belt that's available plots those daily levels as horizontal levels every day so that we know exactly where they're sitting. And it's live too, so that we know today, well, you know, yesterday, we know on a given day exactly where that line sits is exactly what that 21 looks like, or where it is, right? A lot of other people mark where the 21 is with the drawing, but as the day progresses, that moves around. We have a live tool. So, going to be opening basically flat. So ultimately, we've got a nice little squeeze around us, 1 hour. So looking for that to hold the bottom of that 1 hour around that daily 15, daily 8. Oh, basically this 3660. Looking for all of that to hold. Start to bounce us back up through 3700 to 3712 where the daily 21 sits, and up to 3740 at the top of this squeeze. If we break any higher, looking to get back to recent highs, up near that 3800. I know that's quite a push, and not saying we get that today. Likely going to be contained within squeezes today. If that 3660 gives out, then it's back to 3620, 3600, 3558. We do have a gap that we left behind that we will likely fill should we break down below 3660, 3640. We also had a gap, but that has been filled from the last 2 days. So maybe we find our buyers to continue higher. SPY. Let's see. once we gave out that 370 yesterday, target was getting back to the daily 8 and 15 down at this 365.45. We held there, and now we've worked our way back up to 370. Basically about to be opening right in the middle of that range. I'll be watching the 370, 372 calls today. I'll be watching the 365s, maybe like 362s or 3s. Since, it's not a 0 day, we'll look a little further out. But you can see that our squeeze, 1 hour squeeze, perfectly lining with our key levels, 370, 365. And we're going to be opening in the middle. So I can't say if we are going to drop first, try to pop first. We'll have to just see. But this is the range today. If we can break out higher, looking to get back to 374. If we break down lower, getting down to 362. Tesla, Tesla, Tesla. So, reported earnings. A little bit of a negative reaction, but it hasn't sent us in a crazy move outside of the range we were already in. You can see we started the week near this 206, 205. And that dump reaction just got us back to this week's lows. If been around trading, you've probably seen a negative reaction where we completely dump out of the range, and we should have, on a really, really poor report and negative reaction from investors, we should have seen this dump down to like 180, well out of the range. But that's not what we got. We are going to be dealing with a little gap down from 220 to this 208. Looks like we're at right now. So definitely dealing with a gap down, but not as crazy as we, could expect on a true negative reaction. Overall, am I saying that this is going to snap back? Not necessarily. We just have to see how it reacts at these levels. If we start to lose this 206, 206 and a half-ish, we can expect to come down to retest this recent low, 203 and a half, and probably get down to this big key psych level of 200. The third Keltner, the downside, down near that 201. Usually, we don't see things push past third Keltner too much. Tesla has been getting beat up lately with this whole Twitter deal, supply chain issues, China, yada yada. So it's been riding that third Keltner to the downside. And then moved from the third Keltner all the way back to the first Keltner, not quite to the mean. So let's see if we can continue to hold this 206, 205, and see a bounce through 210. Sellers are losing control, and we will maybe start to see Tesla try to fight its way back to 216, 223. We start to lose that 206, 205, like I said, coming down to this 200, and I've got levels below that. But let's see what she does today. I have seen crazier things than a somewhat negative reaction that does pop back. So I'm not saying I'm leaning long. I have to watch and observe and gather a little more data. But this, to me, is not the worst reaction. So, UVXY. For continued upside today to get up to our squeeze tops and try to move further, we need to see UVXY get down below this daily 21 at 12.15, make its way down to 12 for a test live during the cash session. This overnight slip obviously wasn't too important since we popped right up, but for continued upside, looking for UVXY to continue to slip down to 12, maybe even this 11.8, and maybe even push down to 11.5. Firing squeezes to the downside would allow the market to fire squeezes to the upside. But if it bounces at 12 or moves from open up, if we are going to see downside on the market to get down to squeeze bottoms, we will likely see UVXY work its way back up to 12.5 and maybe even work its way up to 12.8. but we're basically in a 1-point spread on these squeezes from 11.8 to 12.8. VIX. Same deal. We are stuck between the daily 21 and daily 8, like we saw on a number of names, like Meta on the other tickers that we covered. So, for further upside in the market today, would like to see VIX stay below the daily 8 and daily 15 here, kind of around this 31.3. For downside in the market, right? If we are going to roll down and test our squeeze bottom, since we are kind of opening in the middle, we will likely see VIX get up to test that 31.3, 31.5, maybe get up to that 32. That's for downside in the market. For some upside, I would like to see VIX stay below that 31.3, head below 31, work its way down to 30.5 at the daily 21. And if we can actually get out and start to fire squeezes to the upside, looking for VIX to get down to that big psychological 30 level, which we have not tested for a couple of weeks. So that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Hopefully you all found this helpful. It is Free Thursday, where you can come into our Discord for free. There's a link in this description if you're not already in there. You can come in and test out our tools on your charts, mainly talking about our predicted trade system, which predominantly works on your options charts, but also works on your equity once you join our service. For today, for the Free Thursday and testing out the free tool, the tool that you'll import will only work on your options charts, but it provides amazing levels, buy levels, sell levels for you to navigate your options trades. So definitely come in and check us out if you haven't. It is Free Thursday, so you get to use our tools and trade alongside our traders and get a taste of what the experience is like before you sign up. So thanks for tuning in. Good luck today, and we'll see you all in the chat.